Hello and welcome. I'm April Seiler. I'm the CEO of Good Eatin', and so thrilled to be here today to welcome you to our fireside chat. Now, it's highly likely that you all already know Chris, 12-time NBA All-Star, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and future Hall of Famer. But did you know that he's also a plant-based snack-making entrepreneur? And today it's about this long-term legacy building, right? Because a lot's changed since Chris first entered the league in 2005, doing endorsements through to today, where, he's really leading the way as part of this new era of brand owners, world-class athletes that are owning their own brands. And we have Robbie Robinson. So Robbie is the co-founder of Pendulum Holdings. Pendulum is a strategic holding company that seeks to really reimagine how great companies are built and to redefine who it is that gets to run these companies. So please join me in welcoming Robbie and Chris.
Thank you, April.
Thank you, April. This is a long time, brother, so we got a lot to talk about.
Yes, sir.
So, April, thanks again for that introduction and really your leadership as the CEO of Good Eatin'. When Chris decided to step in front of the business on your behalf, we kind of knew what we needed, but we didn't know we were going to get somebody like April who was exactly what we needed. So her leadership and the way that Good Eatin' has showed up in the marketplace since she came on board last summer.
Yep.
Which seems like a long time ago, much longer than that, has been really phenomenal. So this is going to be a fun conversation because Chris and I and our teams have now worked together for more than 5 years. What we started working on and the evolution of that
It's crazy.
is phenomenal. And we haven't really told the story, and we're just in the early innings of what the story ultimately will look like. But this is absolutely a story that is about somebody who is far more than just an athlete, candidly far more than entrepreneur, but is somebody who is deeply purposeful, has just a tremendous character, and as a student of people, as a dedicated family man, as a passionate philanthropist, as genuinely a good human being, he's always thought about, how do I make the world a better place? As a competitor, as a connector, as a mentor, as a leader, all the things that he's doing. Unfortunately, it's not just about him, he's got a phenomenal team around him, Carmen and a bunch of others who day in, day out make sure that what he can bring to life actually comes to life. Chris is making an impact, and Good Eatin' is absolutely a symbolic of that impact because it's always been about intention. And so it's been an honor for me and my wife and our family and our team to be in business with the Pauls. We've got a lot in common. We're both from the South. Our dads both have afros. And so
that was my dad during the pandemic. He really ain't got one.
Exactly. Okay, so let's get into it. And before we talk about Good Eatin' and how you have really led the successful architecture of that business, I want to first touch on just the world of brand opportunities and how it's evolved for professional athletes from just doing endorsement deals to now being entrepreneurs, being brand owners, and being builders of businesses.
Yeah, first of all, thank you guys for being here. Seriously, it's an honor and a privilege, especially after coming off a back-to-back, coming down to Austin, going back, because we got another game tomorrow. But
I came from Doha, by the way.
Yeah, I ain't do that. But it's always interesting to tell your story because sometimes you just feel like people don't care. Not saying you don't, so I appreciate you guys being here. And I think for me, this being my 20th season in the NBA, man, I've literally grown up in the NBA, right? I'm 39, came in, I was 19. And so I remember my very first partnership when I got into the NBA was Nike, right? I signed a Nike deal before I even played a game in the NBA. And then when you're a young kid, you're just like, what endorsement deals can I get, right? I did a deal with Powerade. At one point around the Olympics, it was like me, LeBron, Dwight, all us did a deal with vitamin water. You're just trying to see like what type of endorsement deals you can do, because what do you want as a young kid? Money, exactly. And the other thing too is you want fast money. You want fast money, and that's smart sometimes for the business people who are bringing it to you because they like, here, just take this. They're not going to pay attention to the real overall business. And it's been cool to sort of to see that transformation in the NBA and to be a part of it. So now I play with a lot of younger teammates who have obviously watched us over the years, who now are really thoughtful and thinking about deals and making sure that they're partnerships and not just endorsement deals.
One of the things that Chris and I, when we first started working together, I think we spent a lot of time talking about, let's make sure we understand how the businesses that you could do business with, how do they make money?
Right.
So that we can then understand what's the contribution that you or your ecosystem could make to ensure that whatever the arrangement would be, it was based on having complete and appropriate information.
Right.
So now you're building a chip business, and we're not going to jump all the way into it, but it is interesting that the NBA, as dominant as it is, has all sorts of relationships, one of which is with a business called Frito-Lay that I think owns seven out of the 10 largest snacker, chip, or cracker businesses in the world, and you're building something that's a direct competitor to that. Is that shocking to you? Could you have imagined that when you started playing? And now how do you feel about building something as formidable as what Frito-Lay could be is?
Definitely wouldn't have imagined it, right? Especially as a kid coming into the league. But like, it's funny, I don't know if you guys remember, like we used to do all types of endorsement deals. We used to do that Got Milk campaign, right? There's a picture of me somewhere with that fake mustache, somewhere, and I don't even drink milk no more, So when you're younger, you don't know what you don't know, right? So I never would imagine that we would have Good Eating, obviously, like you said, competing against the NBA, who has another chip brand. But I think that's ultimately the goal, right? To be as involved as I've been with so many things without the league over the years. As president of the union, hopefully one day the goal is, hey, why couldn't Good Eating be the snack brand?
Absolutely.
Right? If you in a league and you're talking about really partnering with your players and all this different type stuff, I think that's ultimately the goal.
Absolutely. I think that will be the case.
Yeah, sooner rather than later.
April, you got to figure it out. So let's take a step back. 61, your memoir, where you spent a lot of time talking about the lessons of hard work and the value of owning your own business that you specifically gained from your grandfather. As you have ventured into the world of business ownership, what are some of the lessons that you've pulled on from what your grandfather taught you?
Right, so 61 was a book that I wrote about my late grandfather who was murdered my senior year in high school. He was 61 when he died, and I scored 61 points in my next high school game. And I think, as a kid, I was just like any other kid. I went with my mom to work, I went with my dad to work, and I knew on the weekends I was gonna be working at my granddad's service station, right? And as a kid, you just show up. You like, your mom and daddy say, you going over there, and I'm watching my granddad, he working every day, working on cars, teaching us. That's child labor when I think about it now. Like at 8 years old, I already knew how to change tires and check oil and all that different type stuff, but you just feel like you're a part of the family business. So the church that I went to, Dreamland Park Baptist Church, we lived sort of on the western part of town. Our church was on the eastern side of town, and my granddad's service station was by the church. So it was crazy. On Sunday morning, my parents both would drive so we could fill up the tank for the week. You know what I mean? But with my granddad, I just watched him work. And it was crazy because we used to have to answer the phone, and every time we answered, it was a Chevron. It was a Chevron gas station. And so every time you answer the phone, you answer and you say Jones Chevron. And my grandfather was Nathaniel Jones. And so as a kid, an owner to me meant you do the work. My granddad owned this service station, but he showed up every single day. Every single day. He was the one that opened and he was the one that closed. And so as an 8-year-old, even 12, 13, I'm not realizing that my grandfather is an entrepreneur, right? I'm just like, this is how my granddad chooses to work. I don't want to work like this, but I'll do whatever I got to do to help my granddad. But as a kid, you don't realize that this was his way of working. And I'll never forget it. And I tell you guys, My granddad obviously is a different time. My granddad used to always say this, and when you're a kid, you're very impressionable. My granddad used to always say, man, I ain't gonna have no white man telling me what time I gotta be somewhere. And he used to look like, okay, Papa. Seriously, that was my granddad every day. Every day he was working. He would close down the shop a little bit earlier if me and my brother had a game, but that's how I saw hard work as a kid. And I tell you this, just like any other kid, me and my brother wanted things. Yeah. We wanted things just like anybody else. Them new Jordans coming out or whatnot, this going on. And so my granddad used to always walk around with a big fat wad of money in his pocket, in his front right pocket. And so one thing we knew is that Papa had some money. If Mom and Daddy said no, we wanted to go ask my granddad. So that hard work that he was doing, it's crazy to even think about it now. Like that hard work that he was doing, to me, that said he was making money. And what I always appreciated about him, and this is what I say, is that he, if we wanted something, he made us come work.
Absolutely.
Made us come work, right? So if Papa, them J's coming out, they like $150, Pop. They $150.
Let's get to work.
I see you this weekend working at the service station. So that's what sort of built me for that.
I think it's really powerful because one of the things I say a lot is, when you decide to become an entrepreneur, you're fundamentally making a choice. But when you make that choice, you're signing up for all that it entails. And so you saw somebody early on in your life make a choice and then honor that choice by doing everything that was required, and then he was able to, reap the benefits from that. There's so many synergies between sports and business, but at the core of both, to be fantastic at either one, you have to be disciplined and determined. As a point guard, you're responsible for, running the business of the game on the court. You manage your ownership, your vision, your engagement of Good Eatin' with that same discipline and determination. Has that been hard for you?
Man, everything is hard, to tell you the truth, but I think the thing that has helped me throughout everything is the fact that I've been on a team my whole life. Right, literally been on a team my whole life. I played Pop Warner football, AAU basketball, and now the thing that I think helps me the most in business is that I have to walk into a locker room every single day. Yeah. Got coaches, got teammates. I'm a parent. I'm a husband. You have to realize sacrifice, but being on a team every day, you realize that you can't do everything. Right? You can't do everything. This isn't tennis. This isn't golf, right? This is basketball. I tell my teammates, I do not come through the lane dunking. That's out. I'm not doing it. It's funny because we'll get a rebound in a game, and I call for the ball, and we might be on a 2-on-1 fast break, and my teammate will be like, I got it. I'll be like, listen, man, give me the ball. I'm going to give it back to you. I promise. I promise. I have no intention on laying the ball up or dunking this ball, so we all play a role on the team, right? And I'm a firm believer in, you can't be the smartest person in the room. So when you're putting a team together, i.e. Robbie and his team, April and what she's brought, is actually fun for me. I think that's going to be the hardest part when I finish playing is, well, that'll be the greatest thing about having the businesses is still being on a team.
Absolutely.
Because it's dope when you see other people succeed. But I mean, I know we're going to get into it, but I think about when we first got this and we was like, all right, we didn't got this far, but we need a CEO.
Exactly.
We need somebody, so.
Before we get there, let's talk about the business of sports. One of the things that I think, and you talk about this a lot, but it was very transformational throughout your years as a basketball player is not just being the president of the union, but in doing so, needing to build relationships and an ecosystem with some really powerful business owners. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about what that journey was like, and how did you show up in that space with somebody who had the confidence and the voice to represent your constituency, but also somebody who needed to build bridges.
Yeah, man, we need a whole segment for that thing, because that was, today's the 5-year anniversary of the shutdown, right, mm-hmm. of the league. But my third year in the NBA, I never forget, a guy named Billy Hunter was over the Players Union, and he came to me and he asked me to join the executive committee. And I was like, no. Like, seriously, back then, just so you guys know, every team has a player rep. right? There's a player rep and there's an alternative. Every team in the NBA. And those player reps vote on different things. The CBA, they vote on different things throughout the season. If players got an issue, your team reps. So when I first came into the league, this is what the vets did. This is what all the old heads did. When the union would come meet with us and they say, who the player rep? All the old heads be like, young fella. Because as the player rep, you had to go to a meeting in Vegas. You had to go to a meeting during the summer and a meeting at All-Star, right? And a lot of guys used to be like, All-Star, I'm going to the Bahamas, I'm going here, I'm going there. So what's been really cool is to see that transformation. So when I joined my third year in the NBA, I remember the 2011 lockout. We were in an 18-hour meeting at the Waldorf Astoria in New York. And I'm like going back, remembering all that. David Stern was the commissioner at the time. And I just sat there and I looked across this table, and I think Dolan was in there. He's the owner of the Knicks. And all these different owners for all the different teams. I think Clay Bennett might have been in there. It's all these different owners. And I'm in my early 20s, and I'm just sitting over there listening to what they're talking about or whatnot, but I'm sort of just processing, taking it all in. And fast forward a couple years later, we're in Vegas, and a few of the players asked me to be the president. And excuse my language, I was like, hell no, I ain't doing that. Like, I at this point, I'm trying to build my own business, right? I was like, I don't have time to do this. Mm-hmm. And at the time, we didn't have an executive director, right? So I remember asking my wife, and she said, if the guys came and asked you to do it, then you need to do it, right? So just to take you into the room, imagine a room like this with all the NBA players, and you have to be nominated, right? You have to be nominated. So they nominate you, and then they ask you if you accept it. And I said yes. I think Dre Iguodala or Roger Mason, somebody else. And then the players get up and go vote right then. They go vote right then. So then they come right back in. They tell you if you won or you lost. Right here in front of everybody. You know what I mean? I was like, I remember I was sitting there like, y'all can just tell us tomorrow. This is weird, because if I lose, I'm going to be mad at all y'all. But I ended up winning. And I never forget, man, my anxiety went out of the roof. Yep. And Carmen is in here sitting somewhere, and I tell you, I flew back from Vegas to North Carolina to my parents' house, and I called Carmen as soon as I landed and said, I don't care what they say, but I ain't doing it. I'm not doing it, because it was such a responsibility, right? I've never had to be so accessible in my life. Right? But I knew once I took that job on, it was a huge responsibility. If y'all watch games and stuff, I'm not always the most liked player on the court. All good with me. I do not care. But when I was president of the union, I had to make sure that if guys had questions or anything like that, they could always call me. I don't care what it was about. If it was about, are we playing? Because a lot of times people see the CBA and they just think about the money.
Correct.
They don't realize the collective bargaining is about what color our shoes are, what color our tights are, how much per diem we get on the road, all these different things, because you got 450 players. Some things are more important to some players, and some things are more important to other players. Yeah. And so that's when I really started to learn how to manage these relationships and get a chance to know the different governors of the team. And yes, it's a lot of people managing.
And so one of the reasons why I wanted you to spend some time just sharing all of that and that evolution is because when we started working together, I think one of the things that is a function of just, how the league has grown, how players have been able to be exposed to more as the league has grown, is there's a distinction that I think we really landed on when we started working together between being an investor and being a builder of something, being an owner of something. Because given the body of work that that I began to get to know when I started to understand who Chris Paul was, the person, not just the basketball player, I said we have to actually figure out a path forward that allows you to contribute all of what you can bring to a situation or a set of circumstances, because of this body of work. And I think you appreciate it as an investor. You can't always do that, but as an owner of something, you can do that. And then we had to figure out as we rebuilt or as we built a filter, we said, okay, then you got to build something that's truly authentic to you.
Right. Yeah, and I think the thing too, which I'm always so grateful for our relationship and the things that I've been able to learn, is sometimes you can almost know too many people, or you can have too many ideas, and you just don't know how to centrally locate and focus in on one thing. And that's what I've been grateful for, because obviously anytime someone starts a business, everybody's just like, how can I just blow it out the water and just make it the biggest thing there is, right? But there's scalability, right? And I think that's what I'm always excited about, and learning and seeing how we build and how you come out and how you show up in this place. And Good Eating is very, very authentic. And
but let's talk about that authenticity, because your transition into, because we live in California, we know we aren't vegans, but we do appreciate that, a plant-based set of choices, a plant-based lifestyle, you can become what you eat.
Yes.
And you made that discovery at a really important point in your career as a professional athlete, and the return on investment in just that decision has been phenomenal for you.
Been unbelievable. I mean, for me, like Robbie said, we grew up in the South. Anybody else in here from South? Yeah, so you know what I mean when I say you eat from the rooter to the tutor, right? So, yeah, straight up. I grew up at my grandma's house.
I never really knew what that meant.
Yeah, I know. At my grandma's house, when I got there, it was pig feet sitting right there on the pickled pig feet. You know what I mean? And I love my grandparents and all my family to death, but once you don't know what you don't know, right? And so growing up, a lot of people in my family, I always saw they were diabetic. They had diabetes, right? But not knowing that every time, my Aunt Rosa, she would make so much sweet tea for everybody, every event that we had, right? And you just don't realize. And so while it's good, it's also not always great for your health. And so me going to LA, to the Clippers in 2011 was the first time I had did a leap test. It was a test that tested your blood against all these different foods and different things. And then fast forward to 2019 when I got introduced to plant-based. There's no way, honestly, that I'm still playing if I didn't learn the different things that I knew about food.
Absolutely.
Right? And food has changed my life, as far as understanding that your gut is your second brain, right? And there's a lot of people who've been able to teach me, and I'll just tell you this real quick. I'll never forget my dad's 60th birthday, right? I was in LA, I was riding on the 405, and my pops called me, and I'm close to my family, my mom, my dad, everybody. My dad called me, and he was crying. And I pulled over to the side of the road, like, Dad, what's going on? He said he had went to the doctor for his checkup, and his doctor asked him what he was doing differently. Because my parents are at that age now where they're going to funerals every other week. Every other week. And my dad told the doctor that my son had just had me start changing a few things here and there in the way that he eats. And so for me, it's always been about just trying to share a little bit of the knowledge that I have. I don't know everything. I'm still learning. I promise you I am. But it's almost a way of being selfish, right? Like, I don't want my parents to be sick or anything like that. So it definitely changed my life.
That awareness then led to you as an investor starting to do some different things within the plant-based ecosystem.
Yep.
And that was, and this was 2019, 2020, as we were building the filter of things that we were going to prioritize, how you would spend time, whether it was from a name, image, and likeness standpoint, or how you were going to spend time as an investor. It was very clear that kind of the plant-based ecosystem was a place that it had the right tailwinds, you had the right story to tell, and authentically you could show up in that ecosystem in a really powerful way.
Yes, it's amazing. I'm not sure how many people know, but the snack industry is a $41 billion business. $41 billion business. And I tell you right now, I'm a foodie. I like food, and so snacking is something that we all do. It's something that we all do on a regular basis. We go grab this, and I think they show that like Gen Z now, they snack actually more than like they get meals.
Right.
And so obviously with the GoPuff partnership, just seeing how we could show up.
When the GoPuff opportunity was presented, we hadn't really decided how you, other than an investor, were going to actually double down in the plant-based ecosystem, but we knew it was a priority. And so one afternoon, I regularly get calls from Chris when he's in the locker room because the players are having a conversation about something, and either there's a fact that I shared with him that you want to make sure you're sharing it accurately, or there's a question that you want to ask. And so in this particular moment, and we won't use any, we'll be discreet about sort of the circumstances surrounding this, but somebody asked Chris to introduce them to somebody on behalf of GoPuff, the company. I had never heard of GoPuff at the time. Chris hadn't heard of GoPuff at the time. And I think this happens a lot to athletes where because of their networks, they get asked to do things, and oftentimes they end up not doing it because you don't actually understand what's being asked of you because you don't have all of the context.
Right.
And so I asked Chris, I remember this very vividly. I says, well, is this somebody you want to transact with, or is this a friend? And Chris said, this is a friend. I would never transact with this person. And I said, okay, well then we need to actually make sure from a responsiveness standpoint, we have to set that as a threshold premise to, if we're going to learn more about this is a friend, not somebody we transact with. And then I'll never forget. And I said, but you can still do business with friends. So what we should do is let's go learn more about this thing called GoPuff. The very first Zoom we had with GoPuff, it's so fascinating, I'll never forget it. They said, first of all, the thing that we were asking you to do, we don't care about that. We've been Chris Paul fans since we were little kids. We just want to be in the Chris Paul business. You remember that Zoom?
Yep.
And it was in that moment, and GoPuff was doing a lot of different things, trying to kind of leverage their pipes to push product. And one of the things that they were focused on was a plant-based destination within the GoPuff environment.
They're better for you category.
Exactly. And so that's instantly where we said, okay, this is a unique way for Chris to be more than just an investor in these types of businesses, but there can be a real collaborative partnership around a plant-based shelf in the GoPuff ecosystem. And the only thing that we did in conjunction with considering that was we said, and at some point, we think we want to build a brand. I don't know why we said it. I just think we were throwing, stuff at the wall.
And they said, come back to us.
Exactly.
You're kidding around.
And part of what that first step was, let's actually see if these guys can be good partners, and let's understand what we can learn from them as partners. And so we got to know GoPuff. We understood how their digital engine worked. We appreciated what they were good at, what they actually didn't need to be doing. And then after the first, I think the first chapter, the first couple of runs of the partnership around kind of the plant-based strategy that you helped them to bring to life, it was time to push them on, hey, you remember this part 2 we talked about? Let's actually build something.
Yep.
Let's talk about when we started and all of the different things that you got intimately involved in, because this is also an important story to tell, because at that point in time, that's when you became an entrepreneur.
Yeah, when you start, it's different. It's different because the other thing is time management, which I'm sure everybody's always trying to master and figure out, because between my wife, my kids, trying to be this athlete, trying to manage all this stuff. I was still president of the union at the time. And so when we started, it was really cool to see how it all came together, right? To see the team that they put behind it, the taste test, right? Like, you think about it, the snacks or whatnot, whenever you guys get a chance to try them, like the process of starting, right? I never forget at the house in Phoenix, there's these clear bags and it's all these different flavors, and I think Cam was there, my brother, a team of people, our crew, everybody's there, and we're taste testing. We like, oh, okay, this ain't really it. This ain't really it. And then I liked McFlurries, Oreo McFlurries. Real talk. That was my thing growing up.
It'll kill you.
Yeah, the kid. Not now, but I said when I was a kid. So I've always sort of liked Oreos, and that, when I saw that we could do that in a popcorn flavor, I was like, oh yeah, we definitely gonna do that. We're gonna do it. So if you try that bag, you can go through that whole bag just in one sitting. And so the process of going and doing all the taste tests, that's one thing. Then I'll never forget Madison Utendahl from the Utendahl Creative Group, because that's the other thing too. I've always wished I was an artist, like in my previous life. I wish that I could draw and do all these things. So there's nothing like obviously practice all day and then you come back and somebody has almost this vision board of what the snacks look like. And I'll never forget when I seen the snacks for the first time, I was like, I love it. I love it because I love the colors, because for the most part, when you go into stores, and no offense if anybody else in here has another healthy snack line or something, but usually it's green and brown, right? Everything that's good for you is sort of like green and brown. So we wanted to make it exciting and fun. And coincidentally, I wish we had that picture. My daughter in 2019, when I was playing in Houston, she used to go to like the little painting classes that kids go to. And my daughter had painted a picture that looked just like the blue bag. Just like the blue bag. Like, and the creative team that came up with everything, they never saw it. They never saw it. And so it looked just like the blue bag, and it was a painting my daughter made for me. So it was almost like it was meant to be. Yeah. Yeah. And so that whole process of then, I still remember the first time it showed up on GoPuff.
Well, but then you forgot about Good Eatin', the name.
Oh, yeah, dang, I forgot about that. Oh, it was a whole bunch of names.
Chris was involved in every single detail of starting this business, from product development to branding to the name.
Yeah, the names, we was throwing out all types of stuff.
And my first reaction was like, I forgot he's from the South.
It was like Good Eats, it was good something. Then we had to figure out what was already taken, what was already licensed, and then just like some people from the South, with the apostrophe N on the end.
Good eating.
But yeah, like the whole process of everything. And along the way, you learn different things, right? It's been really cool. Like our first iteration of bags a while ago was so hard to open the bag. Yeah. So hard to open the bag. Then the other thing, April, as far as like where the flavor is on the bag. Yep. All these different details, right? Because you think about your bag sitting on the shelf, and it's like, that's our bag, it looked nice. And then you actually start talking to retailers, and they're like, well, you got the flavor down too low. You need to move it up on the bag. So being a part of all these conversations, it's just been really cool to learn, because like I said, I've been playing basketball a long time. You ask me about a pick and roll, I can tell you that all day long, but now once you start to get out into the marketplace, you start learning, and that's what's cool.
One of the things that's really hard about early stage consumer businesses, particularly CPG businesses, is you think you know who your customer is, but ultimately you have to spend a lot of money to go find that customer.
Right.
One of the beautiful parts about starting with GoPuff in the partnership that we created was, at least it was a closed digital ecosystem where we could rely on the data to help us to understand what was working, what wasn't working, where was it working, and with whom it was working. Yeah. And I think, you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so like I said, Nike was my very first partner, right? So I designed my very first shoe like 2007, 2008. So I was fortunate enough in my career to have 13 different shoes, right? So, and I kind of think of the shoe business a little bit like the snack business, maybe a little bit, but I say that to say when I would sell shoes, you would get a royalty check, right? But then also the people that work for Brand Jordan, they would also always send me a report showing me where I'm selling the most of my shoes at, right? I would see I would do a trip to China every summer because that's where I was selling most of my shoes at. And so that data is so important. And that's why having GoPuff as a partner was amazing, because we were able to see where rebuys were happening, who was buying, what type, what flavors, are they
different than what we thought early on?
Yeah, still different, still different. Even the data that we're getting from HEB and stuff, it's wild, because the hot puffs are really, really hot, but people love them, people love them.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to touch on everything that you did as president of the Players Union and the experiences that you had to, in a very innocent but a very vulnerable way, submit yourself to so that you could actually be effective in your role. Then starting with GoPuff as a partner and around something that was very authentic to you, and then incubating a brand and being involved in every single important decision to bring that brand to life, and then doing it with a partner like GoPuff where we could learn who our customer was. That all kind of led to a moment where me and your brother and Carmen came to you and said, we should actually take control of this business.
Yeah, I tell you, and for anybody in here, the biggest thing that I've learned in sports, business, any and everything is you're only as good as your team. You're only as good as the people around you, because the thing that they'll tell you also about being a professional athlete or athlete in anything, they always tell you to keep the main thing, right? So if you put people in position to be your voice when you're not there, then you'll be comfortable, right? Obviously, there are some decisions that they'll always bring you into or whatnot, but on a daily basis, I mean, if I told you what my days look like, it's, I'm up early in the morning, my kids, my wife, they live in LA, so I'm at the gym lifting already. It's a 2-hour difference.
Yeah.
So my kids usually leave for school at 8, practice starts at 10, so that's tough. So I'm usually trying to talk to them while they getting ready for school, and they not trying to talk to me on the phone, and then I got practice, I got treatment, I got all these different things and still trying to compete at the highest level, which is why I'm so grateful for my team and the people who, for you, Carm, everybody, Cam, everybody who makes everything happen, because in business, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, but you can't let things linger. Right? Like a week is a long time, right? So if I got 4 games in 5 days, like this week I got 5 games in 7 days, like if everybody waiting on me to respond, we in trouble. We really gonna be in trouble. And I tell you, honestly, if I'm honest, sometimes it's very overwhelming, right? Because I'm trying to be the leader for my family, I'm trying to be the leader for my team. I don't know how many emails and text messages I gotta reply to because they need a decision. And that's why it's so important, seriously, to have an amazing team, or I wouldn't have thought of actually buying the business, right? I would have just kept GoPuff as a partner. I don't necessarily have time to see where it's trending and what's happening, and that's why you want to talk a little bit about that, about when we decided to buy the business.
So, fortunately, in the way the business did get set up, obviously you were an owner of the business day one. We were insistent upon that, but you were a minority owner, and then there was also some additional consideration for your name, image, and likeness. But in many ways, it was GoPuff's business that we were a part of, and they just respected the leverage that we were going to exert on them to make sure that they got it right. One of the genius decisions that seemed obvious, but I don't think we can take credit for it, we do have to give April credit for it, is coming to San Antonio. The business is primed to become omnichannel, and April says, let's partner with HEB. I was like, oh my gosh, she's brilliant.
Yeah, that was actually crazy, because no one knew that I was going to sign with San Antonio. Hell, I didn't know. I didn't know I was going to end up in Texas again. You know what I mean? But the way that worked out has been unbelievable. HEB as a partner, it's one everywhere.
Well, and what I instantly knew we could leverage, because this is the other important thing that is critical to becoming an omnichannel brand, is the founder's vision, the founder's story has to come to life in a very local way. And so I appreciate it instantly because I know how you work. Okay, that's great. He can go to HEB after practice. He can bring HEB, store managers or employees to games. We can build a whole promotional engagement strategy around HEB as a partner, and that's going to benefit the business in the long run, because we'll be able to show what can happen to other retailers when you start local and you've got somebody like you who's going to do the work.
Yeah, I think that's the transformation too. Yeah, that's really going to I think I came into the NBA before there was Twitter, Instagram,
Exactly.
TikTok, and all that stuff. So you realize, especially when it's authentic to you, you don't always need a huge marketing team, right? You can do it yourself. Me and Cam went to HEB, what was that, last week, 2 weeks ago? We got out of practice, we got off the call, we pulled up over at HEB. We was in there with the snacks, and it's actually funny because I don't get to go to grocery stores as much as I used to, right? when I was a kid, I stayed at the grocery store with my mama. I'm in there, I'm trying to grab some Reese's at the checkout. And it was interesting being there because a lot of people in the grocery store, they're focused, right? They focused. My wife is one of them, right? She know what she getting, and she going straight to that aisle. So it was an older couple that came by, and they had some snacks in their cart. And I was just like, hey, how you doing, sir? I was like, would you like to take some of these good eating snacks? I told him I was going to pay for them myself. He looked at me and said, hell nah. He didn't say hell nah, but his eyes said that. His eyes basically said, get out my way. You know what I mean? And I was like, sir, I'll pay for them for you. But he was like, me and my wife like what we like, and we don't even want to try it. Cool, you got it. But it was cool because next thing you know, it was a teacher, wasn't it, Cam? It was a teacher, she was a first grade teacher. She came by and she was getting snacks for her class, which was really dope. And I actually went and I grabbed 2 or 3 of every snack brand, and she was like, what you doing? I was like, look, I'm gonna buy all your groceries for you. You know what I mean? Whatever you're getting for the kids. It didn't just have to be my snacks, right? It was my snacks, and she walked around for a little bit more and got some other stuff, but I said, I'll take care of that. But I was just in the store, and I got a chance to meet a few people here and there, right? Just letting them try the snacks, and that was great in itself. And that didn't take any effort. Seriously, just going over to the store to see a few people in there, because that's what I've learned being an athlete for all of these years, right? The coaches got to talk to the players. The GMs, the owner, need to talk to the players because we're the ones who's seeing everything on a daily basis. So if I want to have this brand and I want it to grow, then I need to go to the store and ask what the call was with, what do you call them? Yeah, the base makers, right? So the base makers are the ones who are putting your snacks up and all this stuff. So I want to hear their feedback and find out how I can be more helpful in the business.
One of the things and I mentioned this before, as somebody who has really been a very proficient student of people, we're also both blessed to have teenagers. One of the things I think we're seeing take place is just some massive shifts in how young people think about consumption. Austin, my kid here, he reads all of the ingredients on every bag.
Yep.
That doesn't mean he always makes the right choice, but the fact that
we know he can read.
But the fact that kids are doing that, I think is something that you are trying to make sure Good Eatin' understands.
Yeah, it's wild. It's crazy you say that because I got a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old. Anybody in here that got kids or whatnot, now kids got access to DoorDash, right? Seriously, it's kind of scary. They can order their own food and do all these different things, but it's wild because, for a lot of kids, obviously their parents are still determining what they eat, but as they get older, these kids are making decisions on their own, right? Even if their parents are eating this right here, there are kids more and more who, because they are exposed a little more than we were. Like I said, when I was down at my grandma's house eating them pig feet, I didn't have TikTok and Instagram telling me why I shouldn't, right? So it's actually a very interesting time that we live in now, almost going back to me and my dad's story.
Absolutely.
Right? It's kind of backwards. Our parents are always teaching us things, but now in the world of social media and as aware and smart as kids are now starting to teach their parents, right? They're telling their parents, you need to drink more water. You need to do this, you need to do that. And so it's a great opportunity.
And that's that perspective that you are able to gain and experience very naturally, I think is a real competitive edge for Good Eatin' the business, because you now have been on a myriad of calls and Zooms and or meetings with retailers. And while, the handicap of scale can be you don't know what you don't know.
Every retailer I'll say that we done got on calls with have really been trying to make a focus on getting healthier options, right? Not saying all the other ones are going away, but they know that there are kids and younger generation who are coming into the store, and they're aware that this right here is banned in that country because it got this, and this in it, right? So they're understanding that they need more options because people are more aware.
What do you want to see Good Eatin' become?
Man, that is a great question. What do I want to see Good Eatin' become?
I'm asking you because, one, it's an appropriate question, and you'll always ask it because the answer to it or the possibilities to it will continue to evolve. But we're coming up on, a chapter, having closed. And so Good Eatin' now being a priority in a very different way.
It really is, and I think the cool part about it is obviously when we started it was one thing, but now I even think about my family, about my kids. I think about my wife, but especially my kids, even Austin at school with little Chris, like getting him energized and just trying to figure out how my kids can be partners, right? How they can be involved in it. And then I tell you too, what was really important to me, and April knows, was the investment for my team. Right? Like the people around you. I think for me in the career that I've had, all these different things, a lot of times people see the accolades or the wins and the losses that I get, but they don't necessarily see our team, right? So when you start a business or something like this, one of the most important things to me, because you got to realize the people who are going to support you are your people, right? Like when I say your people, I mean like your village, right? And so when I got the snacks at home, my little cousins, my aunts and uncles, they the ones that's always eating it, right? So I wanted to see how they could make sure that they profit in the growth of the company, right? So that was a huge focus of mine, because if you look at social media, right, like if I post something, everybody in my crew usually gonna post it, right? So for me, it doesn't make sense that if the business grows and does well, that the people around me in my ecosystem, they don't benefit in it too. I think that's the thing that I'm most excited about, is continuing to grow and to grow the community, right? Grow the community. The guys invest, the people who invest. It sounds simple, but I just want to see everybody win.
I love it. We'll close out from a business perspective. Being an entrepreneur is really hard. You saw your grandfather be a very successful entrepreneur, but I'm sure it wasn't without hardship. What advice would you give to people in the room this afternoon who are on that journey, or contemplating getting on that journey, or in a challenging moment on that journey? What advice would you share?
Yeah, I think my biggest advice, and it sounds crazy, but you got to compete. You got to compete. My family would probably tell you, like, my kids, they hate when we go in the backyard and play cornhole. They hate when we play Connect Four. They hate when we do just about anything, because I hate to lose, Like, seriously, I always say I hate to lose more than I like to win, right? So in a competitive mind, like you have to make sacrifices, and you have to be willing to do what other people won't do, right? And I know for a fact that's the only way I'd have made it these 20 years in the NBA, because I'm not the fastest, I'm not the most athletic, but I know that you're not going to outwork me. You're not going to outwill me. And I feel like I don't care what it is, what it translates to in life, I feel like that's how I'm wired, and that's how I function. So if and when the NBA ends at some point, then it ain't no meeting that I ain't gonna show up for Good Eatin', right? So when you set goals or whatnot, it's hard. Like, it's really hard. Like, getting up in the morning, whatnot, like, it's sacrifice. If I want to get up early and work out at 5, that might mean I got to go to bed at 8. Right. I got to go to bed at 9. And what you won't do, there's somebody that will. And I think that's what I would tell you. So when you get discouraged or whatnot, instead of thinking about, like, what's wrong and what's bad, just always be like, can I go a little harder, right? Can I put a little bit more time and energy in this space?
One of the, growing up on Wall Street, growing up in the private equity business, I think people don't appreciate how competitive it is. And when we became friends and partners, I instantly said, Chris, you've got all of the skills, all of the experiences, all of the DNA to be not just as good in business as the folks that I grew up with professionally, but better, because you've got a body of work to really leverage, and you've got who you are, and everybody wants to be around somebody like a Chris Paul. And so it's been an honor and a privilege, brother, to call you somebody that has contributed to not just Pendulum and what we're building, but to my family, to our families. I truly hope that, we talk about family business a lot, and the power of family business. We talk about Walmart, the Waltons, Mars, M&M's, the Mars family, Hyatt Hotel, the Pritzker family. I hope and I believe that Good Eatin' has that kind of potential. And there's not another family that I want to see that happen for more than you, and I think we've got what it takes to become it. So I just want to congratulate you on all of what you do for a lot of people, all of what you represent to a lot of us, and it was a good conversation.
Appreciate it. Thank y'all.